That's right. I love that we have more likes than we do viewers. Oh, there, I updated. Okay, I was like, how does that happen? Um, man, yeah. Okay, we got some really cool stuff to talk about today.
We do.
Um, first of all, how's your week been going, man?
It's been going. It's been a week. Actually, strangely enough, it's felt like it's flying by, strangely.
Same
I don't
here.
know why, but
Yeah.
it's just like one day after another has just been flying through, which in some ways was cool because I was anticipating, or I was really waiting for the Samsung Unpacked event where they
Oh yeah.
unveiled their new, Galaxy Fold phones or whatever like that.
Sure. Sure. I saw an ad for that today, actually.
Yeah, man, they're pretty cool, but not a lot of changes from last year's Fold. So I'm kind of disappointed. I was actually thinking about transitioning over, but I don't know if I'm going to do that.
Well, Samsung and Apple, they don't really update their phones. They just make a new model.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, the Fold series has been pretty consistent on year to year big changes, but this one was very incremental or
Sure.
very small. So
Yeah.
was a little
Micromental.
disappointed.
I like that.
I know.
Um, yeah. So I did see the ad for it. I thought it was rad.
Mm.
But yeah, man. No, I agree with you. Like it feels like a Tuesday to me, and it's Thursday, which is a
Yep.
pleasant surprise. Let me just say,
It
kind of
is.
Twilight action going. Um, but yeah. So let's see. Man, just staying busy over here. I mean, we both are. That's why the week's flying by. But got a show at Wave, one of the bigger venues on Monday.
Hmm.
With this band called Otherwise. It's really cool. And the I'm actually going to be there on Saturday because 3 Days Grace is playing there, uh,
Nice.
which is really cool. So I'm going to see that. They haven't had the original singer on since 2013, I think, but they've had a ton of hits come out since then. That's why they're still big. That's why they're selling thousands of tickets even here in Wichita.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna go see them Saturday. It'll be a lot of fun. And then, yeah, man, we have a big announcement for the band coming out tomorrow at noon. Yeah,
Nice.
tomorrow at noon, which is cool. Um, and yeah, I don't want to spoil all the details yet, but we are going to play at the Cotillion in October, which is just such a quirky venue. And I've talked about it on here, and I love it so much. And I wanted to play there for so long. I've just wanted to play there. It's like it's locked in a time capsule in the 60s, and it's so cool. What I love is how I see venues or I see bands make use of the lights. You know,
Hmm.
I love that. I think it's so rad. But yeah, I may need to work on like stage production a little bit, maybe get some of my own lights, maybe find a way to hang the no signal banner that we have.
Yeah, there you
Um,
go.
just to look a little more professional and stuff, but it's very cool. So anyway, those details will come out tomorrow over on the No Signal Facebook page. But yeah, we'll have a show come up there. So anyway, we wanted to talk about a really big thing that passed this week, and it falls right into our wheelhouse of conversation, which is the EV tax credits slash climate change slash tax to rich bill. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so what do you say, man? We just go ahead and start recording. Probably a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Go ahead, jump into it, man. Might as well.
Let's jump into it, man. All right, yeah, because I this will be a quick one uh,
Hmm.
as far as we go. But that's
Short
okay.
and sweet, man. Short and
Short
sweet.
and sweet. All right, already off the bat, we got Aaron
Mhm.
jumping on the live stream. He says, "What's up, guys? Hope all is good. I'm starting to look at phones for an update. I don't know if I want to switch to Team iPhone or stay Samsung. You do. Spoiler alert: you want to switch to Team iPhone. Can I get your opinions? Also, John Boy trying to make a show soon. No worries, I'll make it happen, dude. Uh, I can't wait. Like, there's so many cool opportunities. There are actually people that are going to drive up to Inman for our show opening for Hinder at the end of the month, which is wild. Um, but there's like somebody I went to college with. Her family is coming back from Florida to visit, and
Mm,
she was like, "Well, my family will be in town that weekend, so they're gonna come up,"
that's
which is
awesome.
crazy, man. It's like 45-minute drive. Anyway, okay, so the topic today is about this EV tax credit bill and how, of course, it affects climate change as well. I think we can kind of break it down maybe in a series, right? But we start with the EV tax credits because it also taxes the rich.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's part of the inflation bill, the
yeah,
Inflation Reduction Act.
yeah. But before we jump into that, let's answer Aaron's question.
Yeah.
So I would go Team iPhone. You already know this. I've been Team iPhone for a while. Um, first of all, if you like phones that work,
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
We'll,
yeah,
we'll,
no. If you're a fan of phones that work and don't crash, you should get an iPhone, man. You should get
are
an
you
iPhone.
sure? I mean,
Yeah,
I think I've had an iPhone. Actually, I've known my girlfriend's iPhone to crash a couple of times. So
nah, she's
doesn't
probably
really feel like that's a exclusive, Android thing. It sounds like that's more of just all things. Plus, I remember your last iPhone was kind of had some issues.
my last one. No, maybe the
Mhm.
4S. My last one was good.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, the last one was great. But I will say, I can't really trust your opinion because you are living with her. You could sabotage.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
don't. Why would I sabotage? Why would I go near an iPhone? I mean, what's the point? What's the point? Why
Okay.
would I go near an inferior product?
Nice. Yeah,
um,
I feel that. But I will
but
say, actually, my friend Derek made, to me, one of the strongest points for an iPhone.
mm,
You have an iOS, Apple's operating system that is built for iPhones, whereas a lot of these other phones run off of the same or similar Android operating system, right? So it's like one operating system trying to function on a bunch of different phones. And I understand that laptops all use Windows, right? Except for Macs. But I think there are some differences with how that works. Anyway, that's my argument.
well, so okay, so counterpoint to your first to your iOS argument. You are correct. Yes, it was purpose built. It's part of Apple's ecosystem of being able to lock everything down to where only people have one choice, which is whatever they provide. And since the developers know the specs, of course that makes sense. But I will say that since Samsung is probably one of the biggest Android manufacturers, um, phone manufacturer, or just biggest phone, one of the biggest phone manufacturers in the world, as well as all of their phones have an Android operating system. As well as having a very, very close relationship with Google, especially
Mhm.
lately with their watch and a couple of other, and also with their software, tweaking it to make their once TouchWiz, now One UI, a lot more cleaner, a lot faster, a lot better. Because I will say, back in the day, yes, Samsung, I really didn't like their UI. It was just
Sure.
not that good. But the newest one has actually gotten really, really good,
Okay.
and it has started me to tempt, or I should say, it has made me be tempted to move back towards Samsung. I kind of left because I didn't like the way that they kind of had all their stuff.
Sure.
Um, so with that being said, I think it's getting really close to a point where they're very much on par, at least software experience wise. Of course, there's always going to be bugs in either category.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the biggest argument for me, when someone asks, and this is me actually being non-biased,
Sure.
but when someone asks to if they should switch from Android to iOS or whatever like that, is um, and that was actually a point that was brought up to a friend of mine, and it's how are you using your phone? Do you use your phone as a very basic media device, right? So is it just regular old text messages, looking on the web for small stuff or whatever like that, as well as just small content, a small media deal? If that's pretty much all you use your phone and you don't do a lot of customization with it on Android or changing a lot of stuff up other than just like your wallpaper or whatever like that, then I would say, yeah, I would probably lean you more towards iPhone, because you essentially get all of those aspects that I just mentioned, but
Yep.
in a nice, easier package to use. I will say iOS is a little bit easier if you're going directly into iOS. I do have to really preface that, because if you're
Yeah.
coming from Android, it's really confusing and it's very frustrating.
Sure.
Um, but uh, but it does make a lot of those things flourish a little bit better than sometimes I think Android is able to do. Not
Yeah.
saying that you can't get that same experience, because you can, but I think that is for sure it. But if you are someone who likes to customize, you like to change things up a lot, or even just a decent amount, and you like just having more of the freedom, then stay on Android. And you don't have to stay with Samsung. You can always. The good thing about Android is that you have a slew of different phone options that you can go
Yeah.
to, different manufacturers that make great products. You could go directly to Google, so you could do Google's own Pixel, which is a very, very good competitor to the iPhone in some ways, right? Because
Some ways.
it's in some ways, but they're it's their product. It's coming in, and it's also their operating system, all that good stuff. So you
Sure.
should have probably one of the most smoothest and most optimized experiences. But you can also go to any of the other manufacturers like Motorola. Well, LG's gone now, but
Yeah.
you could go with just a ton of other manufacturers that are out there. OnePlus, if you want. Um, yeah, there's a couple more I can't think off right off the top of my head, but there's a couple of them out there that you can go to. So
Mm.
it all just depends on, yeah, price point, uh, how you use your phone. All of those data points will probably lead you to whichever side. But that's my 2 cents.
Well, I think that you won that argument by filibustering, so it's not really fair. But I do actually wholeheartedly agree with what you were saying. I think it depends on what you're using the phone for. Um, if you are using it for a planner, um, for creative purposes, and for general consumer reasons like social media and stuff, iPhone is perfect. iPhone is great. The cameras are great, and the user interface for all of that kind of stuff is exceptional. But if you use it for higher powered stuff, or maybe just more detailed kind of operations, or maybe you, again, like Denison said, would like to uh, just really truly make the phone yours, and diving into it at a level where you can spend hours doing it. You can do that with an iPhone, but it's not quite the same. Um, but it truly would be more Android. So I am a victim of the Apple ecosystem, so I will never change. I will never change. But I do also love the iOS. I remember when we were in college, the iOS made that huge change. Everybody was like, "Oh my god, why?" And I actually really liked it. I thought, man, this is so cool. It was really great at the time. And then they made that other one, like, I think it's been a while now. The main interface was probably like 4 years ago,
Mm,
5 years ago was a major update to the home screen. Maybe not that long ago. I mean, other than the addition of widgets, which was just a couple of years ago. Uh,
mm-hmm.
but like the actual interface, I think has mainly stayed the same for about the last 4 or 5 years. I did not like that. I've gotten used to it and I like it now. It's fine. Um, but I definitely, yeah, iOS 11. I think is when they made that change. But iOS 10 was a banger,
Mm.
bro. um, anyway, so yeah, hopefully that helps um, with your search, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so okay, let's jump into this topic. So here's
Mm-hmm.
a couple of key details. So basically, pass the House, pass the Senate, um, and right or has it? It has passed the House, right?
Yeah, I believe it's just past the House, and I think it's getting ready to go onto Biden's desk for him to sign it
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah. So it does a lot of things, and we will talk about this more in future episodes. I think that'd be a good way to break it up. But what we're going
Mm-hmm.
to focus on right now is EV tax credits, the incentive for people to buy more electric vehicles. This ties into something that we've talked a lot about this year: is electric the solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there an incentive for the government to push these? I would say yes, absolutely, because the major manufacturers have already invested so much of their R&D
Yep.
into this, and they are major players on in Washington, right? So, um, these tax credits of up to $7,500 for buying an EV.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's This is actually, by the way, called the Inflation Reduction Act, which we've noticed inflation is already kind of smoothed out a little bit. Um, Not, yeah, I should say, compared to what it was, it's still high,
Yeah.
but it's smoothed a little bit. But the gas prices have curtailed a little. Um, and so, anyway, supporters of the new rules say they will uh, wean the auto industry, I'm quoting here, off its reliance on foreign countries, specifically China, encourage domestic production of electric vehicles and batteries. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, if I'm not mistaken, the only battery being mass produced in America right now are the Tesla batteries, right?
Yeah.
But
If I'm
GM
not
is developing
mistaken, yeah.
because GM is developing what they call their Ultium battery,
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to just far surpass anything that there is. But it would be made in America, I would think. Um, I don't know. But see, the thing that people don't really know about cars is that oftentimes, um, the with American cars, like the chassis is made in Mexico, or the body, not the chassis. The chassis is usually
Yeah.
made in America. The body's made in Mexico, and the engine's made in Canada, or vice versa. It's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
So it's more North American production. Anyway, the idea is to have it all done here, which is cool, and of course would help our economy, and of course would therefore help with the inflation issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do tax? I want to ask you this: how do tax credits work? For those who
Uh,
don't,
so
you do because you have a
So the tax credits have been a little bit different for EVs. So in the past, so with this new bill it's a little bit different, but in the past, um, what would happen is that you would purchase an EV, right? As long as your vehicle manufacturer that you purchased it from landed within the correct category, right? So if it landed in the correct category, which was in the past, it was about 200,000 cars, the first 200,000 cars of that manufacturer were going to get some sort of tax credit. The top of the line tax credit was reserved for the first 100,000 cars that manufacturer had. So if you purchased it within that point in time, right, you would be able to get a 7,500 tax credit, right?
okay, yeah,
Um, and what how that works is you still purchase the car. It's not all up front, right? You don't get that money up front. But what happens is it goes off of your taxes. So that tax credit would pop up, or you would see it when you were filing your taxes. So say you are supposed to owe the IRS, I don't know, um, $5,000 in taxes after you finish all your taxes. With that tax credit, it would take out that 5,000. So then now you don't owe the IRS at all. But it wasn't a it wasn't in a way that, if it, if you use that 5,000 up, you still get 2,000. It's not like that. So it's really just going to use up that 5,000. You don't get any extra, but you also don't have to pay any taxes
Okay.
for that specific amount or whatever like that in this example. So that's how that tax credit worked in the past. Uh, and so with this new bill, they're introducing ability for you to actually get that tax break on purchase. So when the moment that you purchase that vehicle, you can actually get that tax credit applied right then and there instead of having to wait till you file your taxes and then it's off or whatever like that. So that way you're actually feeling instant savings, which is a bigger deal and a bigger uh, fix because I think it kind of helps. It does a really good job of bridging the gap because I
Yeah.
think that was one of the biggest things that was a part of the original one is that you kind of needed to be in a certain tax bracket by itself for you to actually feel the benefits of that tax credit.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So it's kind of like a rebate plan, but with the government, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that because California's been doing stuff like this for a long time, right? Um, not this high of a tax credit, but do you think that that's enough to incentivize people? I think it's a big help. I do, but I still think that we're kind of circumventing the problem, which is what uh, the dealership networks spiking the costs, the chip shortage spiking the cost, the supply versus demand spiking the cost. And not to say we're not working to fix all of those things, but I don't know if like this to me doesn't quite put electric vehicles at affordable yet.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I guess that is one thing too to also note on this. So on the new EV tax credit, it is only applied to certain um, price ranges.
Mm,
So that's the other thing. And yeah, I don't think it's applied pretty much for EVs that are under a certain amount of money. Like so if
okay,
you're it's supposed to be for the more affordable ones, but the problem is that there's not that many affordable EVs as it is. So yeah, it doesn't. It
gotcha.
still has a kind of earning requirement in some ways
Hmm.
um, for you to actually be able to qualify for it.
Sure. Which this actually falls into one thing I wanted to bring up here. So, the biggest piece of this, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. They represent automakers producing nearly 98% of the cars and trucks sold here. Um, they believe that 70% of electric vehicles currently sold in the United States would be ineligible for the tax credits. Um, and it's because of that reason that you're discussing, right?
Yep.
Um, so long-term goals of the bill are good, according to this representative, but the industry needs more time to make production plans and to secure domestic materials for their vehicles. And the current supply chain can't support all the EVs that companies want to produce in the coming years. Which I remember when we talked about this, supply chain issue the first time, I was like, man, is this really going to, I asked you, is this going to be a long-term issue? And it is, and it's even more widespread than we thought it would be.
Hmm.
But really, it's just even wild to see it come to fruition. Um, but yeah, the concern here is they're also at jeopardy because the goal for the US was to have 40 to 50% electric vehicles being sold by 2030, which you would imagine by the way that car manufacturers are making that the primary part of their lineup, it'd be even more than that.
Yep.
But it makes it at risk. And again, I have to believe that when he's talking about the supply chain issues, the domestic production issues, these are things that feed into those higher prices.
Yep.
that are making them ineligible for the tax credits, like you're saying. So it's almost like, to me, they put the cart before the horse, so to speak, you know, um, to use another transportation reference. And I say that because uh, this will be effective once they get the other situations figured out and the price of electric vehicles comes down. The good,
Exactly.
which I want to say one more thing. The good news about that is that you can therefore know that they do have intention of lowering vehicle prices, because we were concerned about that a couple months ago. Will this ever go back down? We thought, of course not, but clearly this shows that their intention is for it to do so, you know.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think even Elon Musk even put out a statement saying that he was once they get some of the supply chain shortages kind of fixed on their end, they would lower the prices down to be able to go back to or earlier rates for some of their EVs.
Sure.
So yeah, I think manufacturers really want to. It's just the problem is that all of it is happening so sudden
Okay.
for a lot of these manufacturers because it's like you we were already in a chip shortage and then they got newer mandates to try to essentially clean up things to lower emissions, which is a really good thing, but
Yeah.
it's all happening amidst an already strained supply chain. And so now you're shifting all of that to resources that weren't being utilized or even mined or used as much as they are now. And so you're now having to ramp up production, all that other good stuff. So very similar to kind of what we already ran into with the semiconductor shortage, which is still going on, but it is starting to see signs of alleviation. I think
Okay.
that's the right word for it.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, so I think right now, just a lot of this is just like um, very early, very, very
Sure.
early, like you said.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how long it'll take.
Yeah. I think they have incentive to try and make it happen faster. So Rivian says they're disappointed that the current legislation limits EV access and options for Americans and may dramatically slow the transition to sustainable mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and or no, I'm sorry, that was Hyundai that said that.
Mm.
Um, but Stellantis, which owns Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, said main provisions in the bill could help the company with its $35 billion electrification plans. Um, it says, but the practical elimination of near term incentives for American customers joining the shift to electrified vehicles may threaten the pace of change. So it is doing something, but it's not doing enough,
Yeah,
is what this is
exactly.
saying. You have to imagine, too, that a separate piece of legislation or just giving things time to catch up when it comes to, again, the supply chain shortage, those type of things, will fix this, will incentivize people. I would love to get an electric vehicle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've talked about this before, but I kind of wish I had either that or the complete opposite, which, our friend Blake Loggins, he got a new vehicle and it's kind of around new to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of around the circumstances that I would want. It's a Honda Civic wagon, like a
Mm.
97 model,
Oh, nice. Okay.
and you can load his amps and guitars and everything in there, but no one's gonna mess with it, you know.
Yep.
And I love that, but that's a whole different topic for a different day. But still, versus driving a truck around like I do, um, it's a lot more feasible now that gas is nearly $1 lower than the last time we spoke about gas.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's a toll every 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still an issue. And just to give everyone kind of like a little bit of a perspective on like this tax credit and the reason why you know, a lot of people are saying that it's not going to make a big difference. And what we're also saying that it's not going to make a big difference, at least on the early term, or the short term, I should say, is that so this tax credit, right? You only get $4,000 if you're buying a used EV for the tax credit, which is help. I mean, that
Sure.
is still a big help, but 7,500 is also a little bit nicer um, than $4,000.
Right.
But then you also have so it includes so the federal tax credit includes zero emission vans, SUVs, trucks with an MSRP up to $80,000.
Okay.
So that's
That would
not
cover a lot.
that would cover a decent amount. Um, but that's the other thing, right? You've got a lot of these EVs currently that already have really high markups.
Sure.
So it kind of cuts some of them out. Uh,
Okay, so if we're talking outside of Tesla and you are screwed around at a dealership where they jack the prices up, I get that. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I see where you're coming from.
And so you've got electric sedans priced up to 55,000 MSRP also qualify. Um,
Yeah, there
so there's
are
not
they're out there, but they're
they're out
not plentiful.
there.
They're
Yeah,
not plentiful.
exactly. Especially
Um,
now that we're moving more towards SUVs and stuff like that, and more manufacturers are phasing out their sedans and not even thinking about going for sedan options when it comes to EVs. It's kind of a
right.
that's kind of an issue. It becomes kind of like a dry spell there.
Yeah.
Um, and then you've also got it's fully electric vehicle tax credit will be available to individuals uh, reporting adjusted gross income of 150 or less, 150,000 or less, or 300,000 joint filers.
Okay.
So
That would
that
count for a lot of people.
that does account for a lot of people, but at the same time you still have to have these people who are still in a financially stable point to where they can even jump for these types of cars and stuff like that.
Yeah. That is interesting, huh? That
Hmm.
somebody who could, yeah, yeah, you could easily afford something like that with just under $150,000
Oh
for
yeah,
sure
yeah,
per year.
yeah. You can.
Yeah, but yeah, that is interesting though. It is interesting to me because of how it ties in with the other part of this bill that we'll talk about in another episode, which is the higher tax on the wealthy. So those more expensive cars are not getting this tax credit, and if you make more than a certain amount of money, you're not getting this tax credit. Common when it comes to tax credits for sure, but it does tie in with this other part of this bill, which is interesting. So
Yep.
yeah, thank you for breaking down those numbers.
Yeah,
That
of
is
course.
interesting. But you also look at vehicles like Rivian and Fisker, Lucid, some of these that we've talked about that are entering the car market with electric vehicles. None of them really make vehicles that qualify for that, you know.
Yep. Exactly. They do not. Not at
And
all.
not to make a conspiracy theory out of nothing, but it is interesting. Um, we know how for almost 100 years now, the quote unquote big three, of Chrysler, uh, Ford, and General Motors, love to keep their power, right? And so this is something that truly does help them way more. And it will help Tesla too, because Tesla does make cars that are that affordable. But the startups that are coming in, they're not going to get benefited by it at all.
Hmm.
You know, so it gives people more incentive to buy an Silverado EV than a Rivian pickup.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, stuff like that. It's fascinating. It's so interesting. But and you know what the funny thing about it is those companies truly are based in America and built in America. Tesla, Rivian,
Yep.
Um,
They're all American made vehicles.
I think Lucid is too, right? I think so.
Yeah, Lucid's American as well.
Yeah. So they're literally shooting themselves in the foot by not allowing these other car companies to benefit in some way. So the only way they could really benefit is by making cheaper cars. you
Yep.
know, it's fascinating. So interesting. Well, man, I think we had a good discussion on this, and I'm glad that people jumped on the live stream. Kind of a shorter one because we got places to be and things to
hmm
do. But thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for watching. We're going to continue to talk about this in the coming weeks. There's a lot to break down with this bill.
Yep.
Of course, we talked about these EV tax credits and the effort thereof to try and help with that supply chain and all that kind of stuff. But there's other parts of this too. There's parts that will hopefully fight climate change. Um, and there's other parts of this too that tax the rich more than they really ever have been. So it's interesting. There's a lot to discuss, and we hope you guys will stick around with it. So, best ways to support us, please like, please follow. Wherever you're listening, leave a rating and review. Even if it's on Facebook, leave a rating and review. And that will help us continue to grow, know what we're doing well, and it will share this more through the algorithm.
hmm
Um, and beyond that, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. If you're listening on the audio, you can jump in on the live stream with us in real time. If you want to support us financially, go to the website that is linked down below. It's nosignalrocks.com, and there's a link to the Catch Up podcast page. You can find all of our merch and apparel in one spot. So it's been great. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you next week.